I have legitimately never felt as many mixed emotions reading a manga chapter as I have reading this one. I swear these JJK chapters are getting more and more crazy as time goes on, but JJK chapter 251 just dropped, and let me tell you, I did not expect this whatsoever. The chapter starts off with us getting clear confirmation on how Yuta actually copied Sukuna's cleave by using Sukuna's final finger, which answers a huge question the fanbase had been asking for a long time. If you guys remember, Sukuna ultimately never got his final 20th finger and speculated that Gojo had it, and this sent the fanbase into theory mode trying to determine where or who the final finger was. Some people had their theories that Yuji was the final finger himself. Some people assumed that Nobara had the final finger and was going to make her grand cameo back in the series by using resonance to attack Sukuna's soul. And some people thought Gojo himself held onto it, which would be kinda strange considering he was preparing to go into battle against the one person he didn't want it to go to. But the finger was most likely eaten by Rika and stored in Yuta's massive repository of cursed techniques, which I think is a perfect place for it to be. We still don't know exactly what the conditions of Yuta's copy is, but nonetheless we know genetic information is the key link in some way. We then get into an action sequence between Yuta, Yuji, and Sukuna where we see Yuji getting grabbed and sliced directly in his chest by the King of Curses. But like an absolute beast, the next panel we see is Yuji spitting blood in Sukuna's face while Yuta comes in with an insane uppercut. Yuji then tells himself that this is the last chance to defeat Sukuna and bring back Megumi. Okay, so things are really heating up and it's been made very clear that this is an extremely important moment for Yuta and Yuji to give their everything against Sukuna. We know from chapter 249 that Sukuna's reverse curse technique seems to be coming back, and Yuta speculates that it's only a matter of time before he can use his domain again. So if there's any time to take advantage of Sukuna's weakened state, it's absolutely right now. Next, Rika grabs a hold of Sukuna and slams him down while Yuji lands a kick on him at the same time. It's then where Sukuna realizes that his control over Megumi's body has weakened tremendously. Alright, so this was super exciting to read because this indicates that the plan Yuji and Yuta had intended is working out. In chapter 250, Sukuna mentions how their plan all along is to continuously attack the barrier between his soul and Megumi's, and then using Angel's Curse technique, Jacob's Ladder, to separate the two bodies. And this might be the first time that the King of Curses has actually verbalized that he's feeling fatigued in all his fights so far with the Jujutsu sorcerers. So in order to go onto the offensive, Sukuna purposefully releases Hollow Wicker Basket and attempts to use the World Cutting Slash while seeing if he can tank Jacob's Ladder. We know from chapter 249 that Sukuna had to keep Hollow Wicker Basket active in order to avoid the guaranteed sure hit from Yuta's domain, and this limited his ability to use the World Cutting Slash. But like an absolute beast, Yuji and Yuta already knew Sukuna was going to try something like this and attempt to tie up Sukuna's hands while continuously attacking him. Yuta then notes that Sukuna's slashes are getting weaker and decides to move closer towards Sukuna. It's then when Yuta cuts off one of Sukuna's arms and Yuji makes the blood which he spit on Sukuna's face explode. Okay, so things are getting absolutely ridiculous and further solidifies the fact that Yuji most definitely consumed the Death Womb paintings, since he now has access to all these blood-based abilities and has showcased it multiple times throughout his fight with Sukuna thus far, like before when he uses an off-screen piercing blood. Then Yuji makes a comment about the soul from Yuki's notes that I think is pretty interesting. He mentions on how souls can be combined just a little bit but will never become one, as he's extremely confident that he'll be able to wake up Megumi's soul. So this basically confirms that Sukuna never overtook Megumi's entire body and soul, and he was simply just gone forever. I know that when Sukuna ultimately transformed into his Heian era form, many people were worried that this changing body would just eliminate Megumi altogether. Angel then remarks on how Jacob's Ladder is a really good plan for facing Sukuna, since it basically serves as the finishing blow for when Yuji completely weakens the barrier between Megumi and Sukuna's souls. We also know that Jacob's Ladder only exterminates evil and therefore would only damage Sukuna while keeping Megumi unharmed if their souls were separated. Then we cut over to Yuji and Rika holding Sukuna's arms when Yuta unleashes a maximum output Jacob's Ladder right on top of Sukuna. And we see in the next panel that he was absolutely lit up by this attack, basically having burn marks all over his face. We then cut over to Yuji gearing up and landing a massive punch on Sukuna while saying, "Wake up, Megumi." Then inside Megumi or Sukuna's soul world, we see Yuji standing in front of a groveling Megumi. After calculating this attack perfectly and their plan being executed to perfection, Megumi simply says, "I don't care anymore," implying that he no longer has the will to live, and this absolutely blew me away. I understand that from Megumi's perspective, he saw his sister overtaken by Yorozu and his body was responsible for killing his mentor Satoru Gojo, but I didn't expect him to be as emotionally shattered as he is here, especially in front of his friend Yuji. And I think this truly emphasizes the differences between Yuji and Megumi fundamentally as characters. While Yuji is able to immediately recover from Sukuna's devastating attack during the Shibuya incident, we can see that Megumi is not nearly as resilient. But ultimately, for story purposes, I think Megumi has to come to the realization that he must fight for those he cares about and contribute to this battle in his own way. Right now, I think he's just simply too overloaded with these remorseful feelings to make a stand against the King of Curses right now. Back in the real world, we see Sukuna unleashing a world-cutting slash against Rika, Yuta, and Yuji. Alright, so this is another crazy plot twist that is so sad to see and something I was really worried about seeing Yuji and Yuta bodying Sukuna in the last few chapters. I'm praying that Gege doesn't end Yuta right here because he's truly one of my favorite characters and I would love to see him around at the end of the story. I mean, we see this cut going straight through his body and his arm and he doesn't appear in the chapter again after this panel, so we'll have to see what his fate ultimately is. Please send all your thoughts and prayers to Yuta. But as it seems all hope is lost and Yuta's domain begins to split apart, we get the literal queen herself, Maki. Stabbing Sukuna from behind with the soul split katana as her surprise attack is a success. In this position we see Maki and Sukuna in is so iconic and badass. We've seen this before when Maki ambushes Cursed Spirit Naoya, and even way back in the Hidden Inventory arc when Toji ambushes and stabs Gojo from behind. Maki has truly embodied the role of her predecessor Toji, and I'm so hyped to see where the next chapters ultimately go with her character. If you haven't, be sure to check out my video analyzing how the Jujutsu Sorceress cheated in preparing for the fight against Sukuna. And I wanted to give a big shout out to my one and only channel member. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay curious, anime fam. Peace.